third for setting a screen.
Because of physical play, although Jordan Taylor just got caught with a moving screen. Izzo dying for a moving screen.
It's that dreaded moving screen.
Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Moving Screen Podcast. I'm Brendan Quinn from The Athletic, here with Dylan Burkhart of Hoops. It is Monday, December 7th. Dylan, it finally happened. We knew at some point our schedules, the team's schedules, would be COVID impacted, and here we are. We're what now? I just went official. Michigan's game with NC State canceled. Postponed, sorry. That was going to be on Wednesday. It is the second of 14 ACC-Big Ten Challenge games that to be canceled, joining
Postponed,
sorry. People are going to think this is a bit, and that, but it joins Wisconsin and Louisville as no longer on the docket for Wednesday. So it has happened.
But yeah, Wisconsin game, they're saying they might play at the end of this week. I saw even. So anything can happen.
There you go. That'd be good. I want to see that game. So let's get into up top here, Michigan's schedule, what this means, some of the elements at play here. So essentially what it boils down to is this. Michigan entered this season with 5 non-conference games scheduled. If it had been part of a MTE, it could play upwards of 7 non-conference tournament games. Program chose not to do so and just scheduled 5 games outright instead. So with that, with the NC State game coming off the schedule for now, the options in front of Michigan are essentially to try to reschedule with NC State for this season, schedule a one-off game against what would probably be a neighboring school where testing would be easy and travel would be easy. So you'd be talking about one of the directional schools, EMU, Western, Central, whatever, or Toledo is a name that's been bandied about. Maybe Detroit, who knows? Do that, right, and finish up your non-conference that way, or find some way to put together a makeshift MTE within the next 2 weeks, which sounds crazy but isn't impossible. Michigan has swaths of open days to do so, and there are programs all over the place with their own schedules that have kind of fallen apart. So teams are looking for games. Everyone's looking for opportunity. No one knows what the hell is going on. Just meet up and play ball can kind of be a scenario here. So, Dylan, of those options, do you have any thoughts, preferences, ideas?
First, a couple points of clarity, I guess. So NC State plays basically every 3 or 4 days up until Christmas. They don't play Christmas, but Michigan does play on Christmas. And then they play again the day or December 30th. So there's not a ton of open dates on NC State's schedule. I think you should just point that out. They're not going to want to, unless they're willing to drop a game, it's going to be tough to get that game in. So that's hard, first of all. Second,
hey, can we interject here for 1 second? Something that should be mentioned also with the NC State game?
Sure.
With the NC State game being part of the ACC-Big Ten Challenge, it's basically a ESPN. ESPN is a player in this conversation as well. They had the rights to that game. It was supposed to be not a marquee game, but certainly something that was kind of a proprietary thing. It's part of a contractual deal with the both leagues. So, one thing that Dylan and I were talking about before we came on, like how much carte blanche does Michigan have here to go and do its own thing? Or is it basically like, hey, if NC State can find a day to do it, you have to do it. Like that I don't know that. I haven't been told that specifically, but I just think it's worth pointing out in reference to the possibilities of actually playing NC State.
Yeah, I just wonder how much ESPN cares about Michigan NC State if it's in the middle of December instead of like the Big Ten ACC Challenge as a whole is an event. Any of those one-off games are just other games, right? I'm sure they'd be glad to put a Michigan game against another team on there potentially, depending on how the schedule falls. So who knows with all that.
Disagree. Yeah.
The other thing is about MTEs. It sounds crazy to say Michigan could just host an MTE. There's not really all that much that seems to go into it at this point because the NCAA has put together a blanket waiver this year that any MTE is approved. Michigan State's MTE was basically just games against Western and Notre Dame, and then Notre Dame played at Michigan State, and then Notre Dame hosts Western Michigan. Like, that's the whole tournament. That's the event. So it's really just a scheduling quirk, that a loophole that you can basically exploit to play those games without having to go to some big mega event in Mohegan Sun or whatever, right? So that isn't as impossible as it sounds. You would just have to find two teams and say, oh, let's get together and play some games. And there are a bunch of teams that were shut down for 2 weeks and need games. So it's not impossible. I guess the hesitation would be, well, Michigan could have done that before and they didn't do that. So I don't know how apt they are to want to go out and go through all those hoops and make that happen. So that's my initial take. Adding a MAC school to the schedule does not sound particularly inspiring. We've seen that for 4 games. I don't know that you're going to get much more out of it other than saying, okay, we played a whole schedule. It's not going to move the needle one way or another. Michigan's non-conference schedule was going to be bad with NC State on it, and it's still going to be bad regardless. The question, I guess, is, do you just get a game in, or do you try to hope that you can find a school and bring something together? I don't know. Would you rather just get your game in and tune up for the Penn State game? What's your read on the situation?
So one thing is, Michigan isn't in the MAC. Michigan isn't in the Atlantic 10. Michigan isn't in any of these leagues where you need to be particularly worried about your non-conference. For seeding, in a perfect world, would you like to have a non-conference schedule that, puts you in the best position possible? No doubt. But at the end of the day, Michigan can still go 11-9 in the Big Ten and be a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament, right?
Yeah, but I just think if you play any real teams in the non-conference, any wins basically eliminate they give you a margin, one game margin for error in the Big Ten, right? If you're two teams that are 10-10 in the Big Ten, the team that went out and won a game or at least played a game in the non-conference is going to probably have an edge. And I get it's not the year to really critique people for doing it that way. I think what we've seen is teams traveling all over the place have had more COVID issues than teams that haven't. So it was like, that's smart in itself. But in the end, if you have one game left and that's what you're working with, do you maybe want to try to get a team that has a pulse? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, well, here's the thing. I brought that up as more so, if you're going to say, hey, put together an MTE, right? Bring in 2 or 3 teams, try to do something where you're actually getting multiple games and maybe games of value on your NCAA resume. That's, in theory, that's great. I know I want to see that because I want to see the games. You do as well. At the same time, if you're Michigan, though, the more variables you put into play, the more likelihood you have of things going awry right now. So, right, do you really want to do that? If my read on Michigan is no, it doesn't. It wants to be as conservative as possible. And so in my estimation, it's going to end up being one game. And, the question is going to be, though, do they try to get the best game possible or do they just get a game, right? So is it going to be EMU because it's around the corner? They already went through the testing process to play a Big Ten game once with Michigan State, right? So you can do it again and just get it in. Or do, you wait for a program like Butler to come out of its own quarantine that might be looking for a good game, right? And you can say, all right, well, at least be a top 100 game or whatever. It's better than nothing. So, it's how far down the line are they willing to go to get something on the schedule is the question.
Yeah, the only reason I can see doing an MTE or just speccing it up somehow is if there is some sort of restriction that they can't let the NC State game fall by the wayside, right? Like, what if, they want to get another game and the NC State game might not happen, but the only way to do that would be to retroactively come up with some kind of MTE event to say, all right, we're going to play Toledo now, and that's part of a MTE with one other game. I don't know. And then we still have the option to play NC State if that comes up. That could be a part of the logic, right? I don't think you want to just
anytime.
Huh?
You could play NC State anytime. You could play them in the middle of league play if you want to.
Yeah, then you could go back and add that game in.
Right.
And still get your extra reps in before starting the Big Ten. That's the only way I could see it making sense to do that. Like maybe you can say, all right, we're going to play this team. They played Bowling Green. Well, that's an MTE. File the waiver. There's a blanket approval on all MTE waivers. Now we have extra capacity in our schedule. Like that could be a case. I don't think it's just, we want to get games in and burn ourselves out right before finals and right before we're trying to make sure everyone is not getting COVID before the Big Ten season starts. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So I don't think it's going above and beyond. It's just whether there's any sort of restriction on what you can and can't do with that NC State chip. Because the press release said it was postponed and said both teams would try to find a makeup date. If you go out and schedule Toledo to play on Thursday, you didn't try very hard to schedule a makeup date. So who knows with the specifications in the contract.
And it sounds like Michigan really wants a game this week. They already are. They have a game scheduled for next weekend. Or is that right? No.
No, it's Penn State comes.
No, it's the Penn State game, right? I think they want to have a game before Penn State, right? And then after that, the schedule is wide open. They don't play again until Christmas. They're off from the 14th through the 24th. And to your point, there's kind of a lot of time there for finagling stuff. Like if you just say, screw it, we're just grabbing this game right now. Well, I don't really know. Does that just then mean that maybe you're trying to schedule NC State for 2021, 22 or something like that? Like could be, but I don't know. There's a lot of moving pieces, but I think they're going to try to do what is most basic is going to be my guess on how this goes. That's
pretty much been the path, like the way that Michigan has scheduled the whole season, right? Pulled out of Mohegan Sun. I mean, haven't left Ann Arbor. And I think there's merit to that strategy. So I don't think there's any harm in that. Even the Michigan State Duke game, I think they did similar, right? Just play it at Duke instead of everyone going to one place. So I mean, we talked about Gonzaga on the podcast in the summer and how they're playing all these neutral court games. Now they're shut down for 2 weeks. There's a lot to lose for a school like Michigan to get a 2-week shutdown when you have Big Ten games on the calendar compared to a school like Gonzaga where they need to get their non-conference games in because those are the ones that matter. So for Michigan, I think keeping it straightforward makes a lot of sense, even if it's going to mean who the hell – we're not going to know much about what this Michigan team is until, New Year's? So
yeah, I mean, especially the front end of its Big Ten schedule, as we've talked about on this, is light. We'll put it that way. I think we'll have an answer here though sooner rather than later on what they're going to do. Also,
well, yeah, if they're going to play a game this week, they're going to have to get that finalized quick.
If they're trying to play a game Wednesday, they basically have to have it set today.
Yeah.
Thursday, you could get it done by tomorrow. Beyond that, start prepping for Penn State.
Yep, and that's 2020 for you, right? That's how it's going. I mean, we saw Wisconsin had the same thing happen.
What happened?
It turns out that apparently the bubble was breached down the stretch there.
That's right. Yeah. What were you going to say about Wisconsin?
So Wisconsin was going to play Louisville. Louisville shut down a few days before NC State. And NC State, I think, is not technically shut down for the record. They just didn't practice. They're not in like a 2-week shutdown, which is also a ridiculous thing that the rules and regulations, how every school deals with this is completely different, which makes scheduling incredibly confusing. Anyways, they have Rhode Island, but I guess coming into Kohl Center on Wednesday, Wisconsin does. And then potentially the Louisville game could still be on for later in the week. So who knows what kind of flexibility there really is with all this stuff. And it seems to change quickly at the very least. So today we're going to do a little Big Ten ACC Challenge preview. Is that the plan?
That's right. We're going to run through some early Big Ten thoughts, touch on these games this week, give the people some Big Ten action, man. This is what the pod's all about. This is the moving screen.
This is it.
So make sure you're all subscribed to The Athletic and you have moves and all that stuff. This thing's going to end up being a 4-hour podcast if we don't get started here.
You're already dragging, man. You need to bring some energy. It's Monday.
I already drank half a pot of coffee today. All right. Tuesday's lineup in the Big Ten ACC. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Illinois at Duke. Iowa hosting North Carolina. Good game. Minnesota versus BC. Ohio State at Notre Dame. Penn State at Virginia Tech. Purdue at Miami. And Rutgers hosting Syracuse.
Where do you want to start? I think you got to start with...
I think we have to start with Iowa.
Oh, okay. Have you watched many Iowa games yet this year?
No. Have you?
I've followed them, and Garza has just been putting up incredible stat lines, especially in the first. He's had like 30-plus point halves. It's just been.
But hopefully you don't miss shots.
He's gone for 26, 41, and 35 in 3 games, and these games haven't even been close. It's basically what we expected. I mean, they've played North Carolina Central, Southern, and Western Illinois. The offense is in the top 20 in all 4 offensive factors, and the defense is 71st. So this is Iowa. There's going to be a lot of points in this game. What was your initial – I know Garrison Brooks has been limited in practice, which could be a key injury for UNC, especially before facing Garza. I don't know if Walker Kessler is up for the job.
Yeah, I want to see this game, A, because it'll be the first time I watch Iowa, and B, because Illinois, we saw Illinois play Baylor, right? And got to kind of get a look at them in a big-time game. This will be the first chance seeing Iowa. And also, like, the definition of a game that just sucks in these circumstances, because Carver Hawkeye would be absolutely off the moorings for North Carolina home game. Like, it would just be an awesome, awesome scene. But alas.
I think that's going to really be magnified this week with all these games more than we've
really
seen.
Be the first look at that, right?
Yeah, other than that Michigan State Duke game, we talked about it. But, like, Iowa is just a miserable place to play quite a bit, and it's just not going to be the same when they bring out that funky little zone press trying to turn the game around and the crowd's not getting on top of you, right? Like, how does that work out?
Right. And North Carolina's played games, right? It was in that close game with Texas. It was in a close game with Stanford, beat the hell out of UNLV. So they've got guys. They've played real games. Iowa, meanwhile, has won by an average of 32 points a night. Now we got to see them, okay, are you going to live up to all this hype, right? This has been the question all summer. You got guys like you out there saying, there's no way Iowa's a top 5 or top 10 program. Well, if they are, then they should go take care of North Carolina on their home floor, no?
I don't think this North Carolina team is great.
Right.
They have the 4 bigs. So they have Brooks, Baycott, Deron Sharp, and Walker Kessler, which is what you want, I guess, when you're going to face Iowa. But the big issue has been their guard play has just been kind of miserable. They're turning the ball over on 22% of their offensive possessions and shooting 27% from 3. Right. I know they're never going to be a perimeter-oriented offense, but you need better guard play. And it's sort of been since Cole Anthony got hurt last year that their guard play has just been a mess for 12 months now. So I'm worried about that for UNC on the road, even though it's not going to be whatever the crazy environment. But the freshmen I don't know if they're ready for that yet. I mean, Caleb Love and RJ Davis will be good players, but they're not great college players yet. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the swing point in this game, just because it's not like we love Iowa's guards, but they know what they're doing and they can get buckets, right? So I don't know. I don't know that UNC. I think you have to exploit Iowa's perimeter issues, and I'm not quite sure UNC is up to do that. What do you think?
I think there's going to be a lot of points scored. There's going to be up and down. KenPom has it projected at 79-76. I think this game's in the 80s. No?
Yeah, that seems a little low.
Seems low, yeah. So probably be one of those games where they go up and down, they score a bunch of points. Iowa just Iowa's either going to outlast them in the end or fall down by 20, put on a press, and manage to score like 30 points in the last 8 minutes, and try to win a squeaker.
See, I think it's either back and forth all game or Iowa wins big. I could see this being Iowa blowout.
I would think so. I was more making a joke at his back pocket press.
I like when he claims that it was the plan all along, though. So I'm a big fan of the press. But I think this is you think this is a game you think there's a chance UNC gets up big? I don't really see that.
No, I don't.
Your jokes are taking me off balance here, man. Your cynicism is strong today.
You should be in midseason form by now. All right. Are we predicting these games, or are we just going through
Let's do it. I'm going to write them down, too.
Okay. I will take do you want to pick them outright, or do you want to pick them against the KenPom spread?
Outright.
You
want to do – all right, we'll do the KenPom spread. I like that.
Okay. So this would be Iowa -3. I will take Iowa. We got Dylan writing this down over here. First of all, this is the first time I've ever seen you use a pen and paper. Holy shit.
Got my notebook out here. I'm taking – you're giving me 3 points. I'll take North Carolina, even though I just said Iowa in a blowout. My brand is to pick against Iowa.
Okay.
I'm taking
fair
UNC +3. All right. What do we got next?
All right. We got to go to Illinois Duke. I would say it should be a great game. It is on paper, but anyone who just saw Duke play Michigan State would probably say maybe otherwise. But
so
really, really interesting matchup here. I like between the Baylor and Duke games, Illinois has to come out of here with a split of these two, right? And they already lost to Baylor, so you need to take care of business in this game.
They have to. Well, does it really matter?
Well, you know what I mean.
If they want to be a top 5 team or something like that. Yeah.
Well, that's what they're supposed to be.
Okay. All right.
This isn't like a team of, freshmen that are trying to come together. Like, these guys have played together. They should know how to go out and win a game like this.
So, Duke, do they suck or are they good? Or where do you fall on that? Like, is Duke a top 20 team?
Right now? No way. In 3 months, probably. Their guard play is just blah. And then Matthew Hurt defensively is just a major liability. Jalen Johnson's still figuring out how to play. DJ Stewart's still figuring out how to play. It doesn't look like anyone really trusts anything that they're doing. You see Wendell Moore, who's supposed to be a returning guy, who's going to be a steady player. He goes 0 for 8 or 0 for 9, whatever it was, against Michigan State. I don't know. I don't think Duke's very good right now. And I don't see how they would be ready to turn things around in this game. So, are they good? Not yet.
Yeah, I love Illinois in this spot because Illinois just faced a Baylor team that is legit, have dudes who know how to play, and just like everything that you want from a team early in the season. And they lost, but they're going to learn a lot from that game. My one worry with Illinois is just this 3-point shooting. Like, I guess it shouldn't be a worry that they're making 45% of their threes, but I just don't really believe in it, I guess. It's one thing that Desumu's shooting 47%. Like, he's really good. He's a pro. He can shoot 40% in the year. I'll believe that. DeMonte Williams is 7 of 11 from 3. This dude was 27% last year. He's like never made more than a couple threes really in a season. Right. I guess last year he was 5 of 8 over the last 3 games. And then that left him like 6 of 32 the rest of the year. So he's just not a shooter. And now he's just knocking down threes left and right. Maybe. But I'm a little worried that they're shooting that well, and that's kind of puffing up their early season play. But other than that,
but when you look at their schedule, I mean, they beat the hell out of Chicago State and North Carolina A&T. They were in a close game against Ohio, and then they played Baylor, which might be the best team in the country. So I kind of take all of their numbers with a grain of salt.
Yeah, but they shot 30% from three last year, and they're shooting 45% from three this year. Are they going to really be a good 3-point shooting team? That's my worry. They're going to go to Duke. They're going to get shots. But can they make shots?
Yeah, but I'm just saying their 3-point shooting, this year, it's skewed by their schedule. They went 17 for 31 against North Carolina A&T.
So I guess I want to know where
Chicago State. Chicago State, they went 7 for 18. So they made 14 of those threes in one game again. In a game they scored 122 points in.
So I just want to know where it's going to settle, though. Can they actually shoot, or is it just kind of a fluke of playing Chicago State and NC-A&T? So, but I'm still taking. You're going to give me 5 points. I think Duke is not good. I'm taking Illinois.
So I have a question. KenPom's numbers right now on the projections, are those still cooked in with typical home court advantage?
So I tweeted this at him, and he responded with something before the season. He said he's using 2.25 as, I guess, the home court advantage. I don't quite know what that means, but I didn't want to look like an idiot, so I didn't follow up and ask for more explanation. But he said he could change it as the year goes on, but I think it's slightly reduced, but still there.
Okay.
So, but I'm not completely sure. Because some of these games, I think it could create some kind of value in what you might see for the Vegas lines. But I do think they're kind of ticking down a little bit. I would imagine that this game is not 5 points when the Vegas spread comes out.
I wouldn't think so. Yeah. KenPom projects 76-71. I don't think there's any way it's a 5-point game when it goes live. I would think I would almost put it at a pick.
Yeah, based on how – but also Duke, it takes a while for his numbers to update in a sense, right? So, Duke is still rated pretty highly, even though maybe they're sixth in his rankings, even though what we've seen is not the sixth best team. There's still a big preseason factor. And Illinois has been dragged down by the fact that they don't have great efficiency numbers last year, which affects their ranking this year.
Well, I'll be curious to see this game. I really want to see Adam Miller in this game, right? See him in a situation like this. I want to see
Stewart, a little rivalry there.
Yeah, I want to see how Illinois responds to that game against Baylor. I mean, they got that second half of that game. That was not competitive. Baylor looked like they were just on a completely different level than Illinois. So what do they do? How does Duke combat? You think of Duke's size matching up against Illinois. Who is going to put body up against Kofi successfully? Nobody. Right. So I'm also taking Illinois. I'll take them to cover 5, which seems like a lot on the road, but then you remember they're not really on the road.
Mm-hmm. All right. What's next?
Next, we will go to – let's talk Ohio State, Notre Dame.
I like it.
Notre Dame, saw them in person up in East Lansing. Not very good at all. I think it's going to be kind of a long year for that group. Ohio State, meanwhile, but this is their kind of first game. And you and I talked so much this offseason about Ohio State and just having no clue what to make of this roster. And their first 3 games this year were Illinois State, UMass Lowell, and Morehead State. So 3 games into the season, I still have no idea what to make of Ohio State. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, that UMass Lowell team, they only beat them by 10, and then they got the doors blown off them by NC State by 31 points at Mohegan Sun. So that wasn't really the best performance there by the Buckeyes. But what I think is Ohio State is going to be well-drilled defensively, and I think that really will – I think Notre Dame will have a really hard time scoring against this team. I I don't love what Ohio State is offensively, but I think you can just bet on this team being really good defensively. Chris Holtman's too good of a defensive coach. He has enough pieces. I don't love the offense on this team. It's basically like hope Dwayne Washington can get hot and make a bunch of threes. Otherwise, you're going to have to sort of grind out the game. But I'm still taking Ohio State in this spot just because of that defense, and Notre Dame just hasn't looked impressive. They only beat Detroit by 8 yesterday. It's just kind of been, I don't know. There's nothing really to get excited about Notre Dame based on what I've seen from the talent. I don't think they have enough talent to score in Ohio State.
No, and I imagine Ohio State will be able to get shots over that zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most interestingly, does Seth Towns play in this game? Do we know this yet? What the hell's going on there?
It seems like it doesn't, I don't think so.
I saw Holtman say that he's game to game, week to week or something like that. I guess it's a knee.
Game time decisions. Holtman said Towns and Musa Jallow are at game time decisions. So maybe. I
really
would
want
expect
to Seth Towns. This is annoying.
Come along slowly.
Right? I really want to see him play. So
kind of the story of Seth Towns' career.
Kind of a bummer. Yeah, I mean, what are the odds of that? A car accident on the way to the first game of the year?
Is that what he's out with right now?
I assumed. I remember that happened, and he hasn't played since. Is this something different?
He hadn't played before. He's never come back. So he's never.
I thought
been
he was
fully
going
cleared.
to play in the opener.
Oh, my understanding was that he hadn't been fully cleared even before that. Could be wrong though.
Well, either way, I'm gonna watch this guy play. So
you might have to look up some old Synergy film at some point because he has not made a frequent habit of playing in games.
This one is 73-67 on KenPom, so that's a 6-point line for Ohio State on the road. What are you taking?
I'm taking Ohio State and the under.
I'm going to take Notre Dame to cover the 6. I think it's a close game.
All right.
I think it's a close, ugly game that we will probably be mocking next week.
Oh,
there you go.
Already dialing up the upcoming takes. I like it.
All right.
Purdue, Miami.
Okay, go for it.
All right. So Purdue is at Miami. Purdue kind of had a tough go in their MTE. Pretty bad loss to Clemson, team that I don't think people think are particularly good. Had obviously some injuries early. Had another injury. Jaden Ivey played in the first game, then has been out. So I don't know. What do you think of this Purdue team? They blitzed Oakland by 43 points, but do you have any interest in Purdue being relevant to the Big Ten this year?
I think Purdue is going to be relevant in the sense that it's going to be around, but no, I am not ever going to be looking forward to tuning into a Purdue game. I like the fact that Stefanovic is like hitting, isn't he hitting like 60% of his threes right now? Something ridiculous. Yeah. 15 for 27 on threes. I don't know. I mean, I picked Purdue, like 6th in the league. And I think that this is going to be one of those years where they just grind their way to 11 league wins or whatever, and are just going to be annoying as hell to play. And it's going to be typical Purdue, but without all conference talent.
Yeah, Travion Williams' line is ugly. He's shooting 41% on twos, 88.5 offensive rating on 35% usage.
That's 6 for 14 from the foul line.
That's miserable. I think this is a spot where like we see Purdue lose this game. Everyone completely gives up on them. Eric Hunter comes back in like 2 weeks, and they're like 6-point underdogs at Ohio State. They go and win that game. They go and beat Iowa, and all of a sudden at Christmas, we're like, oh, why aren't we talking about Purdue more? It just seems like they're going to have to get worse before they get better, and then they're going to get Eric Hunter back and maybe start building this up. That's kind of how I see it right now.
I'll buy that.
I still trust Painter, but I don't know if like Miami's got some talent. They're a decent team. They could be out there. I think that there might be. I saw some. Is Chris Likes potentially out? He's really good, and if he's out in the backcourt, that could be an issue. The
little guy, right?
Yeah, the little guard, and he's so fun to watch. But his status is uncertain for that game. So if he's out, I might actually really like Purdue just because they need he's the guy that can make those plays for Miami, and I think Purdue can be susceptible to just giving up one guard going off on you a little bit. So if Likes is out, I actually like Purdue a bit here.
I'd be more inclined to take Miami in part because, I saw a little bit of that Clemson game and I did not like the 5 minutes that I watched of Purdue. So I'll take Miami.
Very honest take. Yeah, I'll go Miami too. So what? It's Miami -1. We're both taking Miami.
Yeah. The next one I think is low key one of the 3 or 4 best games of the week. Now we probably did a disservice this late to talk about it, but Rutgers Syracuse. Q's I believe is still undefeated. Yeah, wins over Bryant, Niagara, Ryder.
Big time.
Yeah, huge schedule. I'm sure they haven't gone anywhere outside of the city of Syracuse, and then they have not. But for Rutgers here, it's, they have early season wins, Sacred Heart, Fairleigh Dickinson, Hofstra. Kind of a statement opportunity, if that's what you want to call it, early on, right? They go and win this game and the narrative will pop right up, right? Last year wasn't a fluke. Here comes Rutgers. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Or you lose this game and it'll be, okay, let's forget about Rutgers again. You know what I mean? So, they're putting some points on the board early, 86 against Sacred Heart, 96 against Fairleigh Dickinson, 70 against Hofstra. Now they got to go play Syracuse's zone. And, for a program that's never been known for its shooting and is only shooting 29% on threes this year, they're going to have to make some jump shots. And we'll see, right?
Syracuse or Rutgers offense against zone this year on synergy. 13th percentile. 0.72 points per play. That's a little unsettling heading into this one for Rutgers. I feel like this game is going to be really ugly. I don't really like either team to score here. I feel like we keep saying that, but all these Big Ten teams are further ahead on defense and offense, I would say, for the most part, other than Michigan and Iowa. So I think Rutgers is probably better, but man, I don't you're not going to say, all right, well, Jacob Young and Montez Mathis go figure out that Syracuse zone. It's not really how they're built. You know what I mean? They don't have the shooting. They're shooting 29% from three.
Mm-hmm.
Is Syracuse good though?
I don't think so.
So, but I kind of like.
We'll get an Alan Griffin sighting.
Yeah, I kind of like Syracuse with 3 points here.
Ooh. I'm not feeling that at all. If it were in the Dome, I would definitely take Q's because I would say a bad Rutgers shooting team is going to shoot even worse in the weird Dome setting. But I know the rack is going to be without the faithful, but I do like the fact that Rutgers is in its own building. Certainly like for it to cover the 3, and I would take them to win outright, and I will also take the under. Thank you very much.
I've really liked Rutgers when I've watched them play this year. I think they kind of have a confidence of a team that expects to win more than maybe they have in the past. I just think this is an awful matchup because they're just not made to beat zone teams, and I'm taking Syracuse.
I would tend to agree.
And then they'll go
I agree with what you're saying, but I think Rutgers finds a way. I don't think Syracuse is going to be that good. And like you said yourself, they're going to have to find a way to score on Rutgers too.
That's true.
If Rutgers could very well win this game 50-48.
I'll buy that, but I'm taking Cuse. We got to have a little bit of split on our picks.
No doubt. How about Cliff Amayori so far? 10 for 12 from the field. He's an efficient player.
Efficient player at Rutgers. Can we talk about – I forgot that Eugene Omarui, who was at Rutgers, is now at Oregon. and he's out getting serious buckets. He went for 40 the other day.
Ripped Steve Pikiell's heart out. One of the all-time transfer moves.
31 on Missouri, 22 on Seton Hall. Dude looks incredible. Apologies to all the Rutgers fans listening to this podcast because
they're not related, are they?
No, but they have the same name and they're both played at Rutgers, so it really confuses me. Anyways, what do we got next?
Let's go to Minnesota versus BC, and I think this is it for the Tuesday slate.
No, we got one more.
Penn State, Vatech. Minnesota versus BC.
So first, I feel like
what's your level of excitement here?
I owe a little bit of an apology to Marcus Carr. I feel like I was a little too harsh on him in the preseason. He's been
major buckets.
He's been incredible. That step back winner was just filthy in the back-to-back with Loyola Marymount. I love that how 2 of their 4 games are against Loyola Marymount. But I'm still a little worried that those buckets in bye games will turn into just shot jacking in Big Ten games. But he's been really good. I think maybe Minnesota is probably one of the most undervalued teams coming out of the preseason. Like, they look decent. I think they should be. I don't think you'd want, like, they're not going to be a cakewalk when you play them. The transfer from Utah, was it Beth Gach? I don't know how you say his name. He's been good. So I don't know. There's a lot there. What do you think of Minnesota so far?
I haven't seen much. Saw a little bit of one of the Loyola games. I don't know. Their wins so far are Green Bay, North Dakota, and 2 wins over Marymount. So now they have Boston College, and then they get UMKC and the Fighting Billy Donlins. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, Marcus Carr is incredible. I still need to see a lot more before I'm buying anything related to the Gophers. This is a good. I don't know if it's a good matchup for him because, Boston College is 1-3, but its 3 losses are Villanova, St. John's, and Florida, and it beat Rhode Island. Rhode Island was good enough to beat a number of Big Ten schools, probably including Minnesota. So, now you've got a hungry BC team that's really needs a win, and to avoid falling to 1-4, they've got some dudes, right? BC, they were decent last year. Am I remembering this right?
No,
they were not.
So you can be hungry as you want, but if you're just giving up 90 points whenever you take the court, it's not really a great situation.
No doubt.
So their pick and roll defense grades out.
They've played real teams in real games, and Minnesota almost lost at home to Marymount. And
they have the worst pick and roll defense in the country.
Okay.
And Marcus Carr is pretty good out of pick and rolls. I see Minnesota just running this one up. Honestly, I don't think Boston College is any good.
Interesting.
Makai Ashton Langford has never been the same since Xavier Simpson punked him up and down the court in Mohegan Sun a couple years ago. I don't like anything about this team. I'm taking Minnesota. What is it? -3?
I'm seeing
-8. That's a big number, but let's go Marcus Carr. I don't think Boston College is any good.
Oof. I mean, I think Minnesota wins, but 8 seems like a big number. I'm inclined to go your way on this one, though. Jim Christian versus Richard Pitino, my lord. I'll go Minnesota to cover the 8.
Oh, take a stand.
I didn't say I liked BC.
All right. I just think Minnesota at the barn.
They did lose by 20 to Florida.
Right after everyone was ready to say Florida sucked after they barely beat Army.
Correct.
But Boston College has played all of its games at Mohegan Sun so far. Is that right?
Just putting up residence.
That's an impressive streak.
All right. Last one for Tuesday. Penn State is at Virginia Tech. Can we talk about Penn State last night? Just a classic performance at Bryce Jordan.
You could see it coming, man, and it was tough. That 19-2 first half run, they're up like 29-12 or something like that, 29-10. And then all of a sudden go into the half. It's what was it at the half? It was like a 11-point game, and you're like, that needs to be a lot higher.
Yeah.
And then it just all fell apart.
Shit, it was an 8-point game with 2 minutes to go, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe firing your coach right before the season is not the best way to maximize your success. Thoughts?
That was really hard to watch. Penn State is to see like Penn State give up. I know it was in overtime, but giving up 98 points when it's been a decent, tough, right, defensive program for at least recent history. That's kind of how you would identify them, right? And now they just have, they lose Mike Watkins. They have nothing on the back end defensively at all. Virginia Tech was just driving at will. And Seton Hall, sorry. And yeah, Seton Hall isn't bad, but I don't know. Is that Penn State win over VCU going to be just a total mirage by midway through Big Ten play when Penn State's 1-9 or something like that? Because they did beat VCU and it's a decent team, but your boy, I still do like Penn State's guards. Like they've got some guys. Seth Lundy is crushing it. He's fourth in the conference in scoring. He's averaging 22 points per game, right? Yeah. And doing so 14 for 21 on twos, 9 for 21 on threes. Myron Jones can do some things. Isaiah Brockington can do some things.
Sam Festus has been really good. They have too many guards, and then they have
nothing else.
John Hara in the middle, and he's just not going to cut it, really, right? So
they have nothing over 6'4" on that team.
Yeah, I get that they want to play fast, and I mean they have been.
Sorry, Seth Lundy's 6'6", but my point stands.
Yeah, so it seems like what they're going to do is just try to use all their guards and run up and down and just play these crazy, chaotic games.
My question, I think the bigger question is this, Dylan, when we talk about Penn State, is what program is Seth Lundy going to be crushing it for next year? I'm going to guess Florida State.
Why is he leaving?
Are you kidding me with that?
Transferring out? Like, what if he likes State College?
Stop it. They already had their entire recruiting class is decommitted for next year. I think it's going to be mass exodus from State College this summer. And the program will end up being worse than it was when Chambers arrived, which is pretty hard to believe, but I think it's going to be a complete start over.
To be fair, they were coming off the NCAA tournament when Pat Chambers arrived.
That's true. Eddie DeChellis he took him to the tournament and then pieced out to Navy when one of the all-time moves.
So I feel like there's almost I don't know. They're not going to be. I just don't really agree that it's not like Pat Chambers built us into something it wasn't. He kind of just.
I thought they were consistently competitive in the Big Ten the last few years, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
They were going to make the NCAA tournament finally last year. It's a brutal way to go out all around. I'll give you that.
You ready for a random 6 degrees of separation? So Seth Lundy.
This is what you're here for.
Seth Lundy went to Roman Catholic High School in Philadelphia, also where my father taught for 25 years. But the coach at Roman Catholic now is a guy named Matt Griffin. Matt Griffin is the son of John Griffin, former St. Joe's coach, who Phil Martelli, current Michigan assistant, worked underneath for 6 years. How's that?
So now all the Michigan fans listening to this podcast are going to be screaming, when is Michigan going to get some kids from Roman Catholic in here? What's going on?
Good. They should. The place is a factory, man.
Yeah, we got to set up that pipeline then. That's what they're going to be saying, Brendan.
All right, Penn State, Vatek. What's the number here? Let's see.
God.
I don't think anyone's feeling good about picking this. KenPom right now has it. Penn State giving 6 on the road in Blacksburg. What do you like?
I'm going to take Penn State with 6.
Vatek did take Villanova to overtime and has a win over South Florida.
And Mike Young's a way better coach than
yes, he is. I'm also taking Virginia Tech to cover the 6 here. I like that.
I took Penn State.
Oh, you did? I'm taking Vatek for sure.
All right. Is that all?
That's a bold. That's a very surprising pick on your part, sir.
All I'll say is this game I think will be more watchable than you might expect. I think Penn State games are going to be fun this year because they're just going to run and gun.
The guards, yeah.
They have so many guards. And also, Virginia Tech is not really they haven't been a team, at least under Mike Young, that's going to like really pound you inside, right? So are they really going to take advantage of that? I don't know. I just think Virginia Tech's probably a little overrated despite beating Villanova in overtime.
All right. Man. Okay. I'm taking the Hokies.
Although I'm a little worried. I'm just looking at this Wofford transfer now, and he's 6'9", has been getting serious buckets, so a little concerned.
All right. I'm feeling good about this split on the picks. All right. Let's move to Wednesday. Obviously, Michigan, North Carolina State is off the shelf. Wisconsin, Louisville is off the shelf. So we will start with, of course, Michigan State at Virginia. Probably this is probably the premier game of the week, right?
I think Duke,
Illinois. It's a little more enticing than Duke. Well, Michigan State beat Duke.
Okay, well, Virginia's boring as shit. No one wants to watch it play. I don't think it can be the marquee game of the week.
Fair point.
Come on.
Fair
Give me a little entertainment.
And Virginia did lose to San Francisco. Shout out Jesuit basketball.
You had a couple of those. All right. Have you? I guess first off, what the hell has Michigan State been doing since they got back from Durham?
Kind of all over the place, man. Haven't looked particularly good, for sure. But that Detroit game, are
we going to talk about how awful our preview of that game was?
Oh my God! Oh, do we have to? I was hoping that we were just.
I thought you let that one slide.
I did. I have acknowledged it to multiple people how bad it was. Don't worry. I take full ownership of my prediction of Michigan State carving up a zone that never was played for, I don't even think, one possession. And we spent all that time talking about that cat from Syracuse and Seton Hall. Yeah. He played the single worst defensive possession I've ever seen in basketball, and then didn't play again for the rest of the game. Great so shout out to Turian Thompson. Really putting a stain on the moving screen, but Detroit's like good. No,
I mean they're 2-0 against the spread. They're better than they were supposed to be. I
mean, it's not just like Antonio Davis was like passing the ball, moving the ball, getting twos. It's not good that he followed up his 0 for behind the arc against Michigan State by going 2 for 10 against Notre Dame. He's going to need to find that shot if he's going to be taking 10 threes a game.
You don't like the 2 of 19 line?
I like that Bull Cool kid. I like him. He's all long and does all kinds of stuff. And I like that Matt Johnson. Did you see that kid's tweet? What a legend.
I did. I mean, the tweet or the quote that inspired the tweet was quite something too. I got to throw that out there, but yikes. So Michigan State over the last 3 years has just boat race teams in these bye games. Like, no doubt about it. Run up the score, get out and run in transition. Are you at all worried that I mean, honestly, even the Eastern game, that hasn't really happened for this team. Does that mean anything to you? Is that just nothing? Do you feel like it just feels like a team that hasn't quite figured it out despite the Duke performance? Like, I feel like they're still kind of tweaking with things and playing around with things. I don't know.
Yeah,
what's your feeling?
I mean, the combination of turnovers and bad three-point shooting, I think, is skewing these games a little bit, or it's at least preventing them from boat racing them. And that is, in my opinion, like not long-term concerns. In the sense that, look, Michigan State always turns the ball over, right? Like, can you clean up things? Absolutely. And will they be cleaned up? Yes. Like, that's just what you see every year, right? The first month of the year, they turn the ball over. Even when they had Cassius Winston, right? Mm-hmm. They turn the ball over early in the year. We all make a huge fuss out of it.
It wouldn't be a December pod without just ranting and raving about turnovers.
Exactly. And then by the NCAA tournament, suddenly they're, playing super efficient basketball, turning the ball over 10 times in a game, and that's it, right? So I think they'll figure out the turnovers. Same thing goes with the three-point shooting. Like, Aaron Henry can't shoot right now. Like, he's just not making shots. I think he's going to be a 38% or 40%, I'd say 38% shooter this year. Joey Hauser, you saw, right? Early on, couldn't hit his shots. Last night goes, whatever it was, 4 for 6 or something like that. He found his shot. So, I do think
you can just say. So the difference is last year it was, Cassius Winston is that guy. He's going to make shots. He's going to figure it out. He's going to run the offense. It was a lot because we'd seen him do it before. Do you think – I don't know that you can just say Aaron Henry is going to shoot 38% from three. He's never been a good shooter, not on volume. He's been it's sort of like, hey, look what I found here when I make shots. It's not like –
I think when this season gets into the parts that matter, Aaron Henry is going to be a usable three-point shooter. Is he a marksman? No. But he's 1 for 12 right now, and he's better than that. So he'll make.
We're going to go a little over-under 3-point shooting bet on this one here, I feel like. Season bet? What are you putting the number at?
Are we going to count the 1 for 12 start, or are we starting from now?
We're counting the 1 for 12 start. Get out of here.
Well, we'll do things.
Big Ten only. Big Ten only.
Okay, fair. Let's put it at 34%.
34%. You just said he's going to be a 38% three-point shooter, and now you tried to set the number at. All right. This is how we're playing it, huh?
We'll put it.
I'm not going to notice that.
We'll put it at 35%. I'm taking the over.
I'll give you 35.5.
Okay, I'll take.
And I'm going under. Write this one down too.
Write that down. But to my point, like, Michigan State's also had, so between the turnovers, the three-point shooting, and some kind of lax at times defensive, like, brain fart type moments that, like, are just, it's just shit that's not going to happen later in the year. Like, no, I think your point is valid that they usually crush in these games, but long term to me, I just don't care.
Yeah, I think so. Hauser
doesn't change my view of the upside at all.
No, so Hauser making threes, that was the kind of thing that you can say that's going to happen. Like him making 6 threes or whatever it was yesterday was the least surprising thing to happen. He's a proven shooter who his shot looks good, it goes in, that's fine. I agree that the upside is still there. I'm just not quite sure. Just makes you at least want to take a look back and say that win at Duke was great, but what, like, maybe we went too far in adjusting for it. Do we need to adjust? I think Virginia will be really interesting because Michigan State at Duke did a really good job of taking advantage of mistakes. Virginia's not going to really make the mistakes to just let you beat them. I feel like they're going to make you win through them, right? Like, you'll have to make a couple plays to beat them. They're not going to just shoot themselves in the foot. They're going to execute. They're going to do all those things. So I think it's a really interesting test coming up. Honestly, it'll probably help them prep for this game, given that they played so poorly for 2 games. I'm sure that they'll be hearing about that and kind of build off of that. So it's what you want, I guess, from these early season games. And really, we've seen it all across the country where teams look sloppy and ragged at different points just because there's been less game reps and all that. So interesting spot for sure. But like
you were rather dismissive of my
what?
my thoughts on Joey Hauser entering the year. Where do you stand now?
I wasn't dismissive.
You were rather aghast that I put him on my first team all conference list.
I don't know that he's going to be a first team all conference guy. I still don't know that he's the most important guy in Michigan State.
That's arguable.
I think that I don't think he determines their ceiling, I should say, right? I mean, Hauser's going to be Hauser. He's going to get a bunch of rebounds. I think he's a better rebounder than I anticipated. I'm not sure that his offensive impact, like you were putting him up there to be this like leading assist guy on the team. I still don't think he
might be. He's played 4 games.
Aaron Henry's going to lead the team in assists.
Probably, but Hauser's going to I think Hauser's going to keep getting better and better and better as this goes on.
Yeah, but the key isn't how good Hauser gets for me. It's how good Watts and Henry get. They have so much more uncertainty in their growth path, right? I think you could start and say maybe like Hauser's going to get better and better, but it's going to be incremental. Henry could either be.
I'm not arguing importance to the team, by the way.
And I don't think I said Hauser. I didn't have any negative things to say about Hauser. I just said it's a stretch to be first team all Big Ten when there's 2 guys on his team who clearly could be better than him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm just keeping track on this. I want to get one of these KenPom charts for your buy-in on Joey Hauser as one of the best players in the Big Ten over the course of this year.
I'm just trying to figure out how I got this reputation of being down on Hauser. I feel like I've said nice things about Hauser for a while here. You have the reputation of being his number 1 fan, though. I'll let people will let you know.
That's not true.
That's the opinion.
I just
of the faithful you readers.
I just hype people, and then when they disappoint, I ignore it and don't mention it again. It's my
shout out to Joe Toussaint.
He's still going to get mentioned this year. Don't worry. Okay, so Michigan State UVA. A good Virginia team, not a great Virginia team. I kind of like Michigan State here, actually. I think they have more talent. And I think when dialed in, Michigan State can still play. I don't mind them playing in a slow game because I do think that they can get good looks in the half court, even against a team as good as Virginia.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was trying to look up Michigan State's transition offense stats. They're only, 7th in transition possessions per game in the Big Ten, which is pretty low for a normal Michigan State team.
Especially obviously, this time of year. This is the time of year they're usually flying up and down, and then they get slower over the course of the year, right?
But the numbers are also just super zonked where Northwestern's first just because they've played bullshit games. So you can't really take too much from that.
Everyone should play Chicago State.
Yeah, if you want your stats to look right, just get the old Chicago State game set up. So I agree that maybe this team hasn't been as transition dominant where they need that to take over a game, but I'm not completely convinced what this will look like in the half court for them. So I think it's a really good test. I think 2's probably too many points to give Michigan State, right? But I think Virginia wins, so I'll just take Virginia.
Fair. I do want to see how they match up with Jay Huff. He's what? He's over 7 foot, right?
Yeah.
He's 7'1". Kind of going to be a very different look than Michigan State has seen. And for this endless conversation about the 5 position, kind of an interesting spot for that, I think. You'd like to see maybe Marcus Bingham have himself a decent game, being able to match with Huff's height and length, right? Because he's good. And if you can't contain what he's able to do, it could be something that swings it for Virginia, because I do feel like Michigan State can get to 68 points, right, in this game. I know you hate that metric, but
I was just going to say, I was going to make a comment about that, but we have to stop talking about this game because I keep looking at Virginia's KenPom profile and I feel worse and worse about picking them. So we just got to move on.
Okay, I'm taking Michigan State to cover the 1 point that it's being granted.
They don't have dudes in the backcourt at all, really. So I worry about that. I'm just curious how Michigan State handles this game. So I think it'll tell you a lot. It's just such a different challenge than that Duke game. So it'll be a good barometer of where MSU is at. And
Virginia. Virginia's going to force these guys to play one-on-one and do some of the stuff that in the first 10 minutes of the Duke game, Michigan State looked wholly uncomfortable doing. That said, I'm taking Michigan State.
Michigan State's definitely more talented.
Yes.
All right, what do we got next? Is that the only? Oh no, we got Indiana, Florida State. That's a good one.
It sounds like you're very excited. I'll let you set it up then. Go for it.
I mean, Indiana, people were ready to start printing T-shirts when they beat a crappy Providence team in Maui, but they did, I think, get an impressive win over Stanford. I think Indiana, having played those games, probably gives it a nice leg up against a Florida State team that has only played North Florida and just blew them out. So you don't really they haven't played a real game. And we saw that with Michigan State, Notre Dame. I think even just Michigan State having played a game gave them a bit of an edge. I also think they have fans at games in Florida. So there should be some people there, I would assume, which is an element that we haven't really talked about with some of these games. You got to keep track of that, I guess. It's kind of a weird circumstance of 2020. But
yeah,
I don't think Indiana has the guard play to deal with the kind of pressure that Florida State's going to throw at them. But these two teams played last year, right? And Indiana actually won pretty handedly in Assembly Hall. So a lot to unpack. I really am excited about just watching Scotty Barnes play, so I'm picking Florida State, I think.
Yes,
I want to see him in a big spot. But again, it's his second game. If Indiana is going to show us anything, this would be a good spot because they've been around. They have much more experience, I would want to say, than this team. They should have at least a little bit of show some fight and let's see what you got, Archie Miller. But I don't know. I just like Florida State's length.
Yeah, I mean their length, and I think Indiana is the number one defense right now in the Big Ten, and that's just kind of always been what it is, right? Indiana, good defense, but can they score, and what does their guard play look like, and can they make shots?
I'm not a fan of Indiana's guard play. Let the record show.
No. I like Florida State here. I like Florida State by 10.
Ooh. Mark those down. We're both taking Florida State.
Mm-hmm. Sorry to Alex if you're listening. All right. Maryland at Clemson. Maryland off to a nice little start, right? They got wins over Old Dominion, Navy, Mount St. Mary, St. Peter's by an average of 25 points per game. They're shooting 64% on twos, making some things happen, trying to make people believe in this lose NBA players and somehow get better, but I'm not buying it whatsoever. How about you?
Yeah, they threw Hakeem Hart in the starting lineup against St. Peter's. He went for 33 points. I don't think he'd scored 33 points in his entire career. So apparently they're working some magic over there. He's a Philly kid too, so you should like that.
I was waiting to interrupt you, but
so
you know where he went? You know where he went to high school?
Roman
Catholic High.
Of course he did.
I'm just saying.
So this team, what do you do with these teams that just haven't played any good teams, right? It's great to play well and beat bad teams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it means you're a bad team if you have a close game against a bad team, but you can't really tell how good you are just by 20, 30-point wins over games you're supposed to win by 20 or 30 points. So, I mean, Eric Ayala has been incredible, but he's not going to shoot 87% on twos and 42% on threes for the entire season.
Right.
Clemson is a good defensive team. So I think
Purdue.
I really worry about maybe those Maryland offensive numbers coming back down to earth pretty quickly once it's like, oh, shit, we need to actually work to get our points. You try it. No, you try it. And maybe that's when you start to miss having one of those go-to guys that you really trusted before.
I would tend to agree. It's hard though, because Clemson beat Purdue, and anytime Clemson's always just such a weird program. But it's on its home court. Will they have fans? They might have fans too, right?
I don't know. I need to figure out a way to track.
I don't think the state of South Carolina gives two shits. So I imagine they're bringing everyone in, season ticket holders. So, yeah, I mean, the obvious Clemson here on KenPom's given 3. I want to take Maryland.
Yeah,
I'm going to take Maryland.
I'm taking Maryland because I just don't trust Clemson to be consistently good ever. They'll be like, they just don't have the offense to really pull away in a game like this. I feel like they're always losing these Big Ten ACC Challenge games to pretty average Big Ten teams. Like they lost by 18 at Minnesota last year. They lost at Nebraska they lost at home to Nebraska the year before. And these have been Clemson teams that are about the same. So I'm going to go with Maryland.
And
we're getting 3 points on that.
Scott Docterman recently just shared a bunch of records for Big Ten ACC, like all time. I'm trying to see, because I have the same recollection as you do, that Clemson just always loses. They're always put in games against programs that really no one wants to play otherwise, and they lose.
Yeah, Michigan's played Clemson a lot in the Big Ten ACC Challenge, I feel like, also. And usually have won.
Oh, I can't find this thing, but all right, moving on.
Good pod content there.
Thanks, guys.
Do we have any more games dialed up here? Where are we at?
We got 2 more games.
Oh.
You ready for these 2?
Oh, they're good. You're the best for last. Let's do it.
Nebraska at Georgia Tech and Northwestern versus Pitt.
No. Georgia Tech at Nebraska.
Oh, I'm sorry. I flipped it. I wrote these down by hand also. Georgia Tech at Nebraska and Northwestern versus Pitt.
What do you want to tackle first?
Start with Nebraska, obviously. Teddy Allen putting up 19 a game through 4 games. I feel like you always want to get excited for Nebraska and its cast of characters.
I'm here for Hoiberg basketball. I just need it to happen. I think they're definitely better than last year. I mean, remember last year they started out and lost to UC Riverside and Southern Utah in the first 2 games of the year? I mean, This team lost a tough one at Nevada, but like North Dakota State, South Dakota, those were like decent.
That was a home game against Nevada, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry, that was their MTE. But I mean, not great. But what are you going to do? Georgia Tech just beat Kentucky, right? I believe that Georgia Tech was doing this thing where they did no contact in practice for like the whole preseason, so they didn't even like play games. It was Josh Pastner's brilliant idea to like avoid COVID. So I don't know how ready they are to go. They lost in 4 overtimes to Georgia State, lost to Mercer, beat Kentucky. What the hell do you do with that? Kentucky is really bad.
Kentucky is very bad right now, yes.
So I'm going with Nebraska. Let's do it.
Ooh.
You're going to give me a point at home? I'm taking Nebraska.
You don't think Georgia Tech riding high off of the win over Kentucky?
No, I think that's a perfect spot for Nebraska.
I'm going to take Georgia Tech here. I don't know. I'm not ready.
How do you feel about betting on Josh Pastner?
I don't know. How do I feel about a Nebraska team that I know 2 guys on the entire roster? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if they had their crowd there, for sure. But I'm not. No, I mean, this Nebraska team against another high major program, I'm not ready to pick Nebraska to win.
We'll see.
We'll see, Dylan.
I'll tune in for that game. That's a good one. I think Nebraska's fun.
I was not expecting that take, but okay. All right, Northwestern, which has probably had the easiest go of it of any team in the country with games against Arkansas Pine Bluff, number 353 on KenPom, and Chicago State, number 356 on KenPom. Some outstanding scheduling by Chris Collins with upcoming games against SIU, Edwardsville, and Illinois Springfield, which is not a Division I program. Really loading up.
They lost. They had a COVID shutdown, right? They lost some games.
They might have. That sounds plausible.
Let's hope, because yikes.
Well, their numbers are kind of thrown off because they scored 92 points against Arkansas Pine Bluff and 111 points against Chicago State.
Fastest offense in the country.
That 201 points or whatever it is probably more than Northwestern scored in 3 or 4
the last month at a time
next year. Right. So no idea what to make of Northwestern. But there are some known names back. Boo Buie, Pete Nance, Anthony Gaines, Miller Cope, Kopp, who's the big white guy there, Ryan Young. So going against Pitt, what's Pitt done? Let's get the update there. Wins over Drexel and Northern Illinois, and a loss to St. Francis, PA. Jesus, man.
So here's my question. If you finish 13th or 14th in the Big Ten, would you rather have familiar names on your roster or new names the next year?
Ooh, new names.
Yeah, I would much rather be Nebraska and be like, maybe Teddy Allen is going to actually be good, instead of maybe we're going to have the same guys back who finished second to last year, and somehow they're going to finish third to last. I don't know. I'm going with I like this Northwestern team less than Nebraska. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'll buy that. Although, I mean, yeah, I kind of like Boo Buie. I kind of like Ryan Young.
Yeah, do you like Pete Nance?
Not really.
Do you like Anthony Gaines? Miller Kopp is 7 of 10 from 3 through 2 games. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he had you and me guarding him.
I would have laid out a hard foul, take him out of the game, get booted, head to the locker room.
The bigger question, I think whoever wins this game should get the Duke job on the spot.
It's the Duke challenge.
Jeff Capel versus Chris Collins with 2 of the worst high major programs in the country. What a battle.
You're not putting Johnny Dawkins in that mix.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, all right, how about the winner of this plays Johnny Dawkins? Maybe they can do more than score 15 points in the last 30 minutes of the game, and they get the Duke job.
I don't think we can count on either of these teams scoring more than 15 points in the last 30 minutes of the game for the record. And I'm going with Pittsburgh and the 5 points.
I'm going to take Northwestern. Wait, where's the game?
It's in Evanston.
In Evanston.
You're taking Northwestern. I already wrote it down.
Okay, fair. We'll see. It's going to be the Anthony Gaines show.
Quite a show. I feel like we got robbed of a couple good games. Wisconsin, Louisville, Michigan, NC State would both be
for sure
probably upper third games. Maybe like that tier below Iowa, UNC.
Definitely Wisconsin, Louisville. I didn't think Michigan, NC State was that great of a matchup, but
I thought it would have been a good game. NC State should be an NCAA tournament team, I think.
Middling bubble team, right?
Fair.
I don't know. You probably did more research on NC State in the last
No, I've had to really contain myself to not do any research or previewing before a safe period of time. Yeah, it's a risky situation out here.
All right. So who is so there's 12 games. I'm going to put over under 7 Big Ten wins.
Let me go over. Big Ten. Well, why don't we do 6? Big Ten will win it. Big Ten will win. Give me 7. 6.5 is the over/under.
That's probably what I would take.
I think Big Ten. You think the Big Ten?
I think Big Ten.
I'm
not high on the ACC. I don't like any of these teams that we've talked about.
No, who's the best team in the ACC after going through all this?
Virginia, I say without confidence.
Like maybe Florida State ends up good, but Duke I don't love as much as really any of the top teams in the Big Ten. UNC didn't look super impressive at at the Maui Invitational that was moved to their home state. Virginia, whatever, get out of here with that. Florida State, Louisville, like it's not a great league. At least I don't think there's as many teams that would probably say, oh, we can make the Final Four this year compared to maybe the Big Ten, right? I don't know.
I would think I would agree with that. Although, I mean, your dismissiveness of UVA is a little disconcerting. I know you don't like their style of play, but it's still one of the winningest programs in recent college basketball history.
Don't you think this UVA team is more like last year's UVA team than really anything we've seen in
the national champion version?
No, but they were really, really good even before they won that national championship, right?
Right, but last year they
finished 42nd in KenPom.
They went 15-5 in the ACC.
But the 6 years before that, they finished top 12 in KenPom. The ACC was really bad last year. That's kind of what I'm getting at. And the ACC doesn't really seem like it's going to be all that great to me this year either. Is that a hot take? I don't think it's that.
It's not a hot take, but but to your original point, I mean, they've been winning 30 games a year since going back to 2014-15 and stuff. It's a really, really good program.
I'm not saying it's a bad program.
And this year they'll go and win. They'll be first or second in the ACC, and they'll win 24 regular season games. The question is going to be whether one of them is against Michigan State on Wednesday night.
And I mean, I picked them, so you're over here saying I'm dragging them. I don't know. I don't love the ACC this year. That just going through this exercise, there's more I can get excited about with Big Ten teams. And it is interesting to look at it.
It's always the case on this podcast.
But it's interesting to look at it in this light because sometimes
you're hyping up Minnesota, for God's sake.
Sometimes it's easy to look at the Big Ten. We look at it all the time. And we're like, we can convince yourself every team sucks. But then you look and you see like, oh, well, Clemson or Virginia Tech on the other side. Are they great? So I don't know. We'll probably say something completely different on Thursday when the ACC wins 8 of 12 games and Big Ten has no more contending teams. But what are we going to do? It's December. It's fun to make.
I look forward to the
early takes.
The post ACC Big Ten Challenge pod will be fun. We'll go over our records, and we'll talk some shit. It'll be a good time for everyone. And we will preview weekend games.
Big Ten games.
Big Ten action. Michigan State Michigan State plays Oakland. Oh, wait.
Yeah, Michigan State doesn't play a Big Ten game.
Michigan State, Oakland, and Michigan, Penn State. Eagles, Saints. There you go. There's your Sunday lineup. All right, you got anything else, man?
No, that's a wrap. We've rambled on long enough.
Okay. Read Dylan's work at Hoops. What do you got up there now?
We have our first 5 key plays of the year up there. We got the video. We had a really good film room about some of the new sets Juwan Howard has introduced with this team and how to get Michigan's wings going. Good stuff from Gibson Piper there. We will not have a NC State preview apparently, but hey, that's the breaks. What do you have over there at the Athletic?
Right now I have a mouthful of water. Wrote a little columnish piece today on Hunter Dickinson and the starting lineup conversation and the kind of crunch of minutes at the wing position and what the hell to do there, which we did not get into on this pod.
Can we pat ourselves on the back for going a whole podcast without yelling about how Hunter Dickinson needs to start?
There it is.
It's impressive.
Yeah. So some thoughts on that, on Michigan's rotations and kind of I don't know what the hell to do with some of the minute crunch there. But so I wrote a piece on that. got a story or two on Michigan State from of late. Joey Hauser's story from last week. So check all that out on The Athletic. We have a holiday special coming up where you can buy one subscription for yourself and gift one to someone else for free. So take advantage of that deal. And Dylan, do you have any holiday deals coming up, or are you just going to steal ours again?
I might just steal yours. That's a nice. I like that idea.
I mean, we have a highly paid marketing department coming up with all these ideas, and you can just
I can just listen to the podcast and be like, all right, dial it up.
Perfect. All right. So subscribe to UM Hoops, subscribe to The Athletic.
I have to look at how to get that cooked up over here.
Make sure you would be so kind to leave us a review in the iTunes store for this podcast and tell your friends about it. And tonight is the night for you to go out and get yourself a takeout meal from your local restaurant and make sure you are supporting your local businesses and taking care of those bartenders and servers.